for your kind attention. My name is Marlene Aselta. I'm with the Southern New Jersey Development Council. Pleased to see you. This is one of our first ventures out, and everyone looks healthy, and let's, please God, let's stay that way. So we have a lot to do, and our Congressman has much to say to us this morning, so we'll get started. First of all, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Jefferson Health New Jersey, Brian Sweeney and Lisa Marina. They're right here, so thank you very much. The presenting partner is Giordano's Waste Management, and Brad Giordano is here. There he is. Thank you, Brad. We have host sponsors, BL Companies, Joseph Michaels, Inspira, Amy Mansue, Rowan University, Joe Cardona, O'Donnell Nacarado, Anthony Nacarado, Sheet Metal Workers 19, Brian Bush, Stokes Creative Group, Barbara Ziegler, PCS, Anthony Mongaluzzo, some supporting sponsors, French and Perillo, Andrew Cushman, HNTB, Dave Mykulak. Did I say that right? Keller Engineers of New Jersey, Sam Moody, and now we can do a round of applause for our sponsors. Thank you. And a lot of officials in the room, so let me start by acknowledging U.S. Congressman Donald Norcross, who you will hear from shortly. Also in the room today, we have former Governor James Florio. Governor, thank you. I believe on his way is Assembly Majority Leader Louis Greenwald, District 3, Assemblywoman Beth Ann Sawyer, Greenwald, District 6, and where is Beth Ann Sawyer, District 3? Here you are. Beth. Camden County Commissioner Al Dyer. Is Al here, Al? Camden County Commissioner Jonathan Young. Gloucester County Commissioner Christopher Conowell. I didn't see Tom Bianco, the Clayton Borough Mayor. Is Tom in the room yet? Yep, there you are. Glassboro Mayor John Wallace. There's John. Deptford Township Councilman Ken Barnshaw. Ken, I know you're here. Yeah. I think former Camden City Mayor Dana Red is, here she is. And I'd like to acknowledge our partners. We do this a lot, and we're so happy that we have partners, either chambers or other associations. So today, we're partnering with the Gloucester County Chamber of Commerce, and Jane Garrity is here someplace. Jane, where are you? She's here. And the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce, Mike Egginton. Thank you, Mike. And I have housekeeping. This is Dr. Hushman's hazardous hot sauce. As a little gift from Dr. Hushman to you, please be aware that it is very hot. So don't use this with a spoon, put it on something. So thank you, Rowan University, for that. Okay, we will begin our program. I'd like to introduce our title sponsor, Brian Sweeney. Ask him to join me. Brian is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Jefferson Health New Jersey. With nearly 25 years of experience at Jefferson Health, Brian has served as Chief Operating Officer for Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals in Philadelphia prior to joining the New Jersey leadership team in the spring of 2020. So Brian, the microphone is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Congressman Donald Norcross is currently serving in his 4th term in the United States House of Representatives from New Jersey's 1st Congressional District. Born and raised in South Jersey, he's the only electrician in Congress and worked for years installing and restoring power for New Jersey homes, businesses, and industrial sites. He rose through the ranks and eventually became a business agent for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 351, as well as president of the Southern New Jersey AFL-CIO, where he advocated on behalf of thousands of hardworking men and women for nearly 20 years. As a member of the House Committee on Education and Labor, Congressman Norcross is working to raise wages, protect the middle class, strengthen workplace protections, and achieve equal pay and paid leave for those raising families. He also serves on the House Armed Services Committee and chairs the committee's subcommittee on tactical air and land forces. He focuses on protecting our national security, supporting service members and veterans, and strengthening New Jersey's Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst. He also serves on the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, where he promotes research and development of clean energy technologies to fight for climate justice and create good-paying jobs. He serves as the vice chair and liaison to labor for the Congressional Progressive Caucus. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has appointed him to be parliamentarian for the Democratic Steering and Policy Committee, and he was one of 4 House Democrats appointed recently to the Joint Select Committee on Multi-Employer Pensions to work on solutions for America's retirement security crisis. He's also the co-founder of the Labor Caucus and the Building Trades Caucus. Congressman Norcross and his wife Andrea live in Camden City, and they are the proud parents of 3 grown children and grandparents of 2. 3. Congratulations.
3, we have a new one.
Marlene, we have to make an edit here. On a personal note, I do want to thank you for all of your support through the pandemic. You have been absolutely outstanding supporting healthcare providers in Southern New Jersey. You have made yourself available to us nonstop. This has been a very tough situation for our community, but especially for healthcare, and you've been right there with us, so thank you. So please join me in welcoming Congressman Donald Norcross.
Well, let me start out by saying I can skip the first time and say, can we get rid of the mask? But apparently you got the memo on that. So we'll be to Spear and Jefferson right after this for a test. Wow, has it been weird? 2 years. Incredible what we've been going through as a country and certainly here in South Jersey. I'm going to start out by welcoming Governor Florio. We're here today because of the work you've done in your lifetime. And let's give him a round of applause. Brian, thank you for that very kind and long introduction, but we certainly appreciate it. Wow. Masks are gone. I see faces. It has been literally 2 years since the first case of COVID was first found in this country. 2 years. Yeah, I'm much older now, and certainly I'm sick of Zooms, but it's amazing that we've been able to do it. But the reason we've been able to do it and make it in the country is because those who got up and had to go to work. Whether you're wearing scrubs in a hospital, a badge on the street, the construction boots, those people, particularly early on, were not aware of the depth and how serious it was. Went to work, and because of what they did, we're here today. So let's give them a round of applause. We've all probably lost one or many loved ones, friends. And the frustration we've seen not only in the nation, but literally around the world. It's been rough, but we're coming out of it. Hopefully we're coming out of it. Jefferson, anything new you want to tell us about this virus?
Volumes are way down.
Volumes are down. That's a good thing, because we have to get back to work. But the way we can get back to work is to make sure that No, not that unemployment pays more, because that's what they were first blaming why people didn't go back to work, or how long it lasted. The number one reason people aren't going back to work outside the parent or the actual COVID is childcare. Childcare, affordable, quality, where you would want to put your child. And we talked about the American Recovery Act, which literally puts billions of dollars into the businesses, but making sure schools were ready to reopen. I mentioned I have a third grandchild. It's been 17 years since my last one, so I'm overdue. $31,000 is what my daughter just told me it would cost her a year to put her child in a daycare. That's a lot of money. That's if you can find one and you can trust. I was a single dad when I started my apprenticeship. Trying to find a childcare that was available at 6 o'clock in the morning, literally my life depended on that. We were waiting at that door for it to be unlocked at 6 o'clock. If it didn't open, I didn't go to work. If I didn't go to work, I didn't get paid. So we as a country have to be able to look at this and make sure there are enough quality establishments for our kids. Half of all childcare shut down during COVID and have not reopened. So I know I'm preaching to the choir for many of you, but this is a very real issue that we tried to address through the American Recovery Act. We need that piece to really get things going. So let me talk about what's going on and just first start out by mentioning the very dangerous world out there. And the events in Ukraine are tough. I sit on the armed services. We've been regularly briefed on what is going on, and it is not good. But I believe that we will come through this without a very serious kinetic confrontation. But the only reason we do is because of the strength that we have as a nation. Right here in our district, Rowan University, who does a considerable amount of research for the Department of Defense, incredibly important because most of the time we look at it as an educational piece, as a piece of trying to put the puzzle together and how we as a nation are ready, but it's also about jobs and the research that goes along with that. So let's talk about what's been going on in Washington. We literally, for over a decade, been talking about that big infrastructure bill. Well, we talked about it and we talked about it, didn't happen. Well, now it's done, it's signed, and literally the money is starting to roll out. $1.2 trillion. That's with a T. We literally did what we promised we were going to do. But then we have to make it work, and the people in this room are literally the ones who are going to put this together. Much of that money has already been going out through what we know is the traditional methods through the state and many of the existing programs. Let's just talk a little bit about what that is. You know, the President went out to Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago to talk about the infrastructure bill, and what happened the night before? The bridge collapsed. And I'm thinking, that guy is good, right? That's the reality of what's going on. And New Jersey is better than Pennsylvania, but that's not saying a lot. There's a tremendous amount of work that has been pent up and waiting to be done. And many of you in this room are going to help us get that done. We're literally talking about $1.1 billion for New Jersey over the course of the next 5 years. Because without those roads, those bridges, our job of getting to work becomes increasingly more difficult and a hell of a lot more aggravating. I'm not one that likes to wait in lines, and you know what happens when bridges shut down. But when we look at that, what else are we looking at? Because infrastructure means a lot of things depending on who you are in this room. It could be about building schools or colleges, which are included in there, but it's also about transforming who we are as a nation. As I grew up and did my apprenticeship, Texaco, Mobil, Mantua Creek, these were all the refineries that we had in this region. And that's on this side of it. Well, we're a changing economy and a changing world. Climate change is real. So we're going to be transforming into new energy sources over the course of the next 25 years. And I will say, even as an electrician, this is coming much quicker than we envisioned. So the charging stations, the electric cars are very real. And what we're doing and creating is over 500,000 stations right here in New Jersey. But that's not enough. You're talking about exchanging the carbon-based fuel that we know into plugging at home. So that means the entire grid has to be redesigned, and that's included. Our electric buses, the Camden terminal for New Jersey Transit, the first one in the state of New Jersey that has created electric chargers for the new fleet. That's being rolled out literally in the next 3 months. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen, and I think it's exciting. But it's great to have electric cars. You have to be able to get there in the roads. So in this room, you certainly know about some of those major projects. We were having a discussion on something I call malfunction junction. Some of you were probably not born when we started that project, 295 and 42. The job just keeps going and going. But that's incredibly important. Now that gets finished. That's the third busiest intersection in the state of New Jersey. The Water Ran Transportation Center, which was new when our governor was governor. Second busiest in the state of New Jersey, completely revamped. Remember, we're going to have 3 rail lines going through there. It's the speed line, the New Jersey Transit going to Trenton, and hopefully very shortly the one that's coming down here to Rome. Putting that research triangle available to all those who drive. Well, for those of you who take the Jersey Turnpike, because everywhere we talk in Washington, it's about what exit do you live on. Well, we're going to finally get those extra lanes down here in South Jersey. And they're exploring, and I want to promise it, but we're not there yet. Somehow, if you're on the Turnpike, you can't get the Route 42 and the Atlantic City Expressway. 2 of the biggest highways, you can't do it. You have to get off, go through Runnymede, take 6 turns and get on. So they're looking at that also. But it's one of the most challenging because of the wetlands. And something that we are leading the nation, and that is in wind energy. The Paulsboro Port, which is being constructed as we speak, imagine the size of these turbines. 15 megawatts, which probably doesn't mean anything to you. 400 feet high, 40-foot diameter. They're making those in Paulsboro, the monopiles. Imagine that standing up, going on a ship and going down the river. That's like watching the Washington Monument going out vertically. We're literally going to put those and become the largest wind port in the United States over the course of the next 10 years. This is real power that's going to continue. And it ties in, it's the size of almost the Salem nuclear plant, all 3 units, literally transforming the way that we conduct business in this country. Incredibly important. But we're also looking at broadband. If you asked somebody 5 years ago, it's great to have internet access. How the pandemic has shut down the world? Well, if you're working from home, you're hoping that your dial-up access that used to take over your phone lines gets you in at the right speed. And for those of you who've had kids, try to go to school online. What a challenge. You know, the teachers that had to completely revamp the way that they did things. And then for you who have multiple kids, trying to keep them, all right, now you're doing this and you're doing that. Do you have enough laptops? Do you have enough for that? Literally, the bandwidth. Had this pandemic hit 10 years ago, it would be a very different world. But even knowing how far we've come, we have much further to go. 31% of those who live in New Jersey don't have access to internet at home outside of their small device. That's an incredible number. Because that means your capacity to learn, to work, goes through that. And that is in part of this infrastructure bill. But for those of you who are in some of the older communities, the combined sewers, yes, we still have a problem there. Money to change that. And one of the issues that is near and dear to me that is incredible is I was with Commissioner Al Dyer going to the brand new Camden High School. And I saw a young man drinking out of a water fountain. You're saying, why is that a big deal? Al knows. For over a decade in the old high school, You couldn't get a drink from the water fountain. Lead in the pipe. We're changing that and literally going to change the way that's being done. So those are just some of the things that are part of our infrastructure bill. But something that we're keenly aware of now, it started with masks. Remember, we couldn't get masks in the beginning? I have said virtually my entire life, make it in America. Well, that means about being able to make it as humans in America, make sure you have a job, educational opportunity. But now, make it in America means something very different. You know, our supply chain has been disrupted. Go by any car dealer. They have used cars on their lot because of the chips. We just passed what we're calling the CHIPS Act. Almost $350 billion to try to ensure that domestic supply base that is around the world. We do live in a very wide open world when it comes to commerce. But it's incredibly important that we control where some of those very strategic supplies are made. And that's why this investment is so important. It's not just about our defense industry, it's about the chips, where a majority are made in China and Taiwan. I don't have to tell people in this room what our challenges are coming from China and the South China Sea and how they can disrupt things permanently. But that's the world we live in, and it's very challenging. But it's also about creating that opportunity for the next generation, access to education, and we have some of the best. It was almost 9 years ago that then Senate President Sweeney and myself passed the higher ed reauthorization and reorganization that was probably last done when you were governor. 37 institutions of higher learning in the northern half of the state, and we had 3 4-year institutions in the south. That wasn't by accident, it was by design, and we changed that. And leading the way was Rowan University, who went from sleepy little Glassboro State College to one of the great institutions of higher learning, not only in New Jersey, but in the country. But it's also about helping Stockton and Rutgers and the investment. So if your kids want to go here, there's a seat for them. We're sitting in a transformed Glassboro. Mayor Wallace, along with those in Rowan, state legislature, the commissioners have done an incredible job, and one that is on the map. So for those of you who hadn't picked that institution for your child, and you don't want to pay $74,000 a year to go across the river to one of those fancy places, your community colleges, your state colleges are the best value. I just want to finish up and then take some questions. We'll talk about the American Rescue Plan. You know, the way that we put together a budget as a country was always made that could be flexible, that you could put off the revenue side until we would come back as a nation. They primarily were thinking about that from a defense standpoint. Second World War, where we as a country all formed together and were able to defeat Germany, Japan, Italy, those axis of evil. But it's also about the flexibility of what we did during the pandemic. The unprecedented spending on social issues was our war. Paychecks stopped, commerce shut down, but we still had to, as a nation, get going. So the American Rescue Plan was one of 4 major pieces of legislation that made sure the hospitals got the resources they need. God, remember 2 years ago? Gloves, masks, gowns, and there was no vaccine. Literally spending billions of dollars to make sure that vaccine became available. And it worked. But restaurants who had to transform itself overnight. How many, who here is the tent maker? You're probably made out better than anybody. We as a country came together and found out different ways to do it. That was what the American Rescue Plan did. It small businesses, trying to keep people employed. And we pulled through it. But every day there's a new issue that's on the horizon. But I'm very optimistic about where we are as a nation, coming off the mask safely, making sure kids can go back in school. And we're making sure that those schools will have the resources they need, so when your kids do go there, they're not spreading the virus or a new virus. And yes, we have to come back together from our roads, our bridges, so it's about jobs, quality jobs that you can take care of your family, that at some point when you reach those golden years, you can retire with dignity. So it's about jobs. It's also about educational opportunities, whether it's the higher education, which I talked about, but also which grammar school, which high school you go to. And the quality of that school shouldn't matter what zip code you live in. That needs to be the basis for all that, along with health care. It's great that we have an employer-based system for most people, but every person in America has to have access to health care, quality health care that they believe in. And yes, it's about security. Security of your retirement accounts, which we did a great number of bills on. It's also safety in your community. And I just want to point out one example, Camden City, how it literally has transformed itself in a very human way. They didn't arrest their way out of it. They reinvented what they did. 2 decades ago, Camden City was known as the most dangerous city with the highest murder rate in North America. Today, that's not the case. Literally, crime rate has dropped by over 50%, as the murders have also. It's about community policing, not defunding police, but making sure that they're funded properly and trained. So those, when we talk about safety, it's safety in communities, but also in our nation. So let me just finish up by thanking those who are wearing a uniform now and those who have in the past. You literally have enabled us to be the great country we are and continue. And with that, I want to thank you.
So I want to thank Congressman Norcross for his remarks this morning, and as he was talking, and I had gotten some questions from folks, I was like ready to just toss my papers out because he covered almost every subject. But I want to offer an opportunity for those who are here to ask questions of Yumar. Appreciate your kindness to be open to do that. So do we have any questions for the Congressman?
Throw a geopolitical one out there, then you can drill down after that. Do you think that Ukraine, after the Olympics, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, they shake hands, like a partnership they're creating, and it almost felt like after that, Ukraine was almost a setup for China. Do you see at some point in time that we're going to be sanctioning 2 countries soon here?
Yes, no, maybe. How's that? So the way that our defense has been set up literally since World War II was to create a system that we were able to fight 2 wars in different continents at the same time. There's always the conversation, do we spend more on social issues or do we spend on the Department of Defense? My short answer is both, just for the reasons you discussed. It was no accident that the 2 of them got together at this time. They had probably as many issues with each other as they do with the United States. But again, the pressures that they're engaging in pulled them together and put those aside. Vladimir Putin is, from a strategic standpoint, a brilliant KGB officer who's been setting up this issue in Ukraine for over a decade. He has predicted that this is going to be the issue. The old Soviet Union, the countries around it were their safe hold, that they could always put them out. The Poland, East Germany, and so the Baltics. That's why Crimea, over 3 years ago, was invaded. He needed access to the Baltics. This is probably more than he needed, and now China also. They went Taiwan back, and they are building their sea forces, their land forces, their air forces to do that, and so are we. So there is a convergence, and the only way that we're going to prevent those challenges is not by going home and putting our head in the sand, it's making sure that we are prepared for the war that we hope never comes.
Thank you.
Great question.
So that was a bright way to get your day moving, huh?
Congressman Mike Eggington from the Jersey Chamber has a question.
Hello,
Hey, Mike.
Mayor. Good to see you, and thank you and the rest of the New Jersey delegation for the support on the infrastructure bill. On Build Back Better, I know a couple of the issues kind of are getting split up. Wanted to know if any tackling of the SALT issue, the state and local tax, might get reinvigorated again.
Oh, it's part of it. So SALT, which came out during the Trump administration tax cuts, has been part of our tax code in this country since we've had a tax code. And that is so you can deduct your property taxes and your federal taxes. They know that there are several states that the backbone of their educational systems is through property tax, which New Jersey is one of those. He removed that. There is the entire delegation that is committed to making sure that the SALT is back in it. That was going to happen through Build Back Better, which is the reconciliation. Without going into a long story, you can only do financial entrance, you can't do policy in there. So, Build Back Better is kind of over there on that shelf with grandmom stuff. It's going to come out in a different configuration, but unfortunately, we're going to have to do it through reconciliation. If not, we're not going to get 2/3 in the Senate. We passed it in the House and it's been there. It was a massive bill for lots of things that's in there, what we've talked about today. It's about childcare, but it's also about making sure that we as a country is ready to go. That's why the Competes Act was put in separately, the CHIPS Act I talked about. We have to look at it. But the focus is, and I talked about the trillions of dollars in social spending, we do have to pay this back. And there are some real challenges with that. So taking it incrementally, a little bit slower, to do it and increment it, let me put it this way, to bring it back where we can afford it, pay down our debt, and also invest. Because there's not a day that goes by that there isn't a better idea on there. We want to do more for our colleges, we want to do more so that the schools that your kids go to are safe, have ventilation systems that work, and all these compete, but we can do it in a smart way. So SALT, short answer is, will be there. What it looks like at the end makes a difference, because the further north you go, the more of an issue it is because of the limits that we've set on there. So hang on to your salt shaker, it's coming.
We have time for one more, Congressman?
Congressman, just to expand on that thought, the bad news is that it affects everybody in the state. The good news could be that if you compete it towards eliminating the multi-millionaires that are out there and take it down to somebody who takes advantage of that situation, it really does unfairly limit everybody for a state of 4 or 5% of the state.
Right. And the ones who aren't worried about feeding their family are those who have those extremely high. They're not a big part of the issue. It's, quite frankly, it's a partisan issue. It's what it is. You can be eliminated, and there's a couple of those that we've looked at, bringing that number down so that it can be included. Because that's an elimination of a revenue point. If that's get eliminated, you've got to put it back in somewhere else. And that's why we want to talk about, let me just jump into student loans. Anybody have student loans that they're still paying off in this room? Big deal. 6% you're paying, you figure out I can go buy a house for about 2.5. That's a revenue line. So if you pull down the interest rate, that means you got to make up that revenue. And they have been unwilling to do that. So that challenge is still there. So the best way to eliminate student loans is never get them in the first place. Bring down the cost of higher ed, like Rowan and Rutgers have done.
Do you have time for one more? I saw one more hand here.
Sure.
Question for you.
Can I hear the question first before I say I get time?
We keep talking about SALT. Should we be talking about the insanely high property taxes instead?
We do, but as a federal government, we don't do that. We're looking for money. We do all the other ones. That was an easy one, thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Appreciate it.
Please join me in that.
Thank you, Congressman. He is on his way to his next, oh, he's going to stay here for a few minutes? Excellent, thank you very
I was
much.
trying to do a little bit more subtly.
I neglected to introduce to you Commissioner De Silva from Gloucester County. Where are you, Commissioner? Thank you very much. I need new glasses. I'm too vain to go and find them, so I apologize for that. I also want to recognize some of the veterans in the room that I know of, and there may be more. But just give me a stand-up, Mike Wilkinson, Rich DeRose. Thank you for your service to us. Are there any others? In any, someone's pointing at someone. Commissioner DeSilvio. What word is that? Navy. Army veteran? And who is? Your name? Thank you. Anyone else? Ah. Brian, what branch?
15 years in the Marines.
In the Marines. He looks like a Marine, I think. Yeah, okay. Don't be shy. We want to say thank you with all sincerity from the bottom of our hearts. We know how important you are to our safety. I am going to ask our board chairman, Glenn DeVilla, to come to the microphone with some concluding remarks.
No remarks before we send you out to this fake spring day. It's going to be 30 degrees colder tomorrow, so make sure you bundle up. Enjoy today. We want to thank you, Congressman. Thank you very much. As you can see, only the Congressman can do in COVID times a standing room only event like this. This is fantastic. Thank you. Governor, thank you for coming. It's always great to have you. Everybody here, just want to thank some of our sponsors one more time. Title sponsor, Jefferson Health. Presenting sponsor, Giordano's Waste and Recycling. Host sponsors, BL Companies, Inspira Health. O'Donnell Nacarado, PCS, Rowan University, Sheet Metal Workers, Stokes Creative Group, and our supporting sponsors, FPA, French Perillo, Gloucester County Chamber, HNTB, and Keller Engineers. And with that, you can all go back to work. Thank you very much.